Okay, Harold, describe your operation and how you're using probes.
My name is Harold Brawl. I've been here in Moore County for 47 years now. So I'm sure y'all have read in farm magazines in the past about average farmer gets to plant 40 crops and harvest 40 crops. So I've exceeded my expectations. So I'm starting my 47th year this year. So been here long enough to witness all the changes. Been through seeing irrigation out of ditches, moved a lot of pipe, advent of sprinklers, high-level impacts, drops, LIPA, sub-level drip. We don't have any of that, but we have mobile drip on a few pivots, and we're still looking at that. We're predominantly corn growers up to about, I guess about 4 or 5 years ago, because of our irrigation capacity has dropped. Like most of y'all's have, I'm sure. We've gone from a little over 5 gallons per acre. We're down to some places 2.5. But we're able to make it work, so I'm optimistic. And you'll get to hear from Steve, and they've done some incredible things. But main thing is profitability, not production anymore, even though we like to have bragging rights, but it's all about being sustainable. And to be sustainable, we gotta make money, as you all know. So we started split cropping our sprinklers several years ago from maintaining our corn production and just planting some early and some late, and then up to about 4 years ago, it wasn't sustainable anymore. It's just too stressful to try to keep everything running. You just could not have a glitch in the summertime and not have a pretty good crop failure or incredibly reduced yield. So we started growing sorghum silage. One of the advantages or disadvantages, the way you look at it, and I look at it as an advantage, we're next to one of the biggest dairies in the world. We're around a cheese plant. So we grow a lot of sorghum silage now, and so we're close, so freight is not as expensive, even though harvest is expensive, but we've been able to make that work. And a great companion crop for corn, because we can plant it. We started planting corn early and sorghum silage later, but what we found, we kind of reversed that. We started planting our sorghum silage early and our corn later, and that way we can chop our sorghum silage early and put all our water back onto our corn, so we can maintain corn production and grow some pretty good sorghum silage tonnages. And also, what we discovered, this was just by mistake, if you're chopping in August, you get enough regrowth on your sorghum silage that's your cover crop. And we can get like 3 to 4 foot of regrowth, and you're tempted to chop it again, but we don't. We just leave it there. And that's been real helpful. The only challenge has been you're and I'm careful how I word this, but you're dependent on the dairy around you, and there's been a lot of sorghum silage grown in the last couple of years, and so there's an abundance of it in the area, and so they've cut our acres back. So this year what we're doing is we're going back to what we used to do before, except we're planting some corn real early, and we're going to chop it early and then move our water over to our corn. So we're back into a full corn circle, but it's a timing deal, and I think that'll work. That's our alternative. We don't grow any cotton, and I'm not saying that wouldn't work. We just never did that direction. We have an elevator on the farm, like Stephen does, and so that's been a profitable enterprise. So we're not growing any cotton. I'm not saying we never will. That may be at some point we might have to do that. As of now, we're not. We use a lot of probes. I've been using probes as long as David's been in the country, and I've been working with him for years. And so we use a lot of permanent probes now and in-season probes. And I don't know how many we have, but different regions. We have 2 different crops in the circle, or 3 different crops in the circle. We have a probe for each region. We've even gone beyond that, and ultimately we've reduced our number of probes. We felt like we're not getting any more information. Once you identify the good zones that you need to be placing your probes, and you get comfortable with that, there's not a need to put a bajillion out there. What else? Soil health is so important to us. We never used to pay a lot of attention to that in the past. That we've got to have a good soil profile because we're deficit irrigators. And so we got to fill the tank up, like David said, in the wintertime or early spring. And that way we can draw on it in the summertime when we're during our heavy water use times. I think the topic today was irrigation scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the only irrigation scheduling we do is we start them up after the crop is planted, and we just keep things running. That's our irrigation scheduling because we're deficit irrigators. But I will say this, that what we do schedule and spend a lot of time and effort trying to determine is pre-watering. That's one of the most important operations we do. I didn't hear Jordan Bell speak this morning, and I don't know what her emphasis was, but we got to plan out when we want to start. We don't want to go too early. Don't want to go too late. We want to make sure that we have enough water in the tank to get us through that critical water use stage. And we're always playing with that. In fact, we're using AI now. I mean, you can go on I don't know if any of y'all use ChatGPT, but you can go, this is the hybrid I want to use. This is the planting date. This is what my soil, this is how much water I need to put in my profile. And it'll give you a pretty good, and you can play with it because you have to ask the right questions. It's like Dr. Seuss said, sometimes the answers are easy, but the questions are hard. So if you play with it, you can get a lot of great information. And that's the direction we're going, the way we learn. And that's going to be a useful tool in the future. We have not even scratched the surface on that yet. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going to turn it over to Steve. He's got a lot to say. And they got a great story, so.
So he's had 47 crops. I'm 41 years old, so he knows way more than I ever will.
I don't know about that.
So, work on our family farm, kind of Sunray area. We irrigate about 5,000 acres of corn, about 3,500 acres of milo, and about 1,500 acres of cotton. We have grain bins, like he said, so most of our management decisions are around getting that facility full, because if it's not full, you can't sell it, right? You got the play in the market and carryover and all that stuff. You can make money off those bins, so that's where we primarily focus most of our effort on is on corn, and then the second crop we focus on is milo, and then cotton is stepchilded like you cannot believe. We did not water a single acre of cotton last year. Now that 1,500 acres was under pivots, and this is how management decisions for us anyway, if we're split crop, especially a lot of our half milers are half corn and half milo. So the corn is the one that, if you just look at basis alone, the corn is the one that's going to pay the bills. Even though it's not great, market's down and all that, well, corn's still going to pay the bills over the milo. So we focus heavily on the corn. We'll spend, depending on water, volume and capacity, all that, we'll spend anywhere from 10 to 12 days on the corn side making one pass. And then when it hits the cotton or the milo, as long as it's not at panicle or bloom in the milo or boot, or peak bloom in the cotton, the sprinkler's just going as fast as we think we can walk that sprinkler without it stopping. And it's going back to the dry side of the field. Our management decisions are really based on trying to get the sprinkler to go in a full circle all the time. Used to have a lot of wheat when I was a kid. We were half corn, half wheat, but windshield wiping sprinklers are just not efficient. You can do things to make them efficient. Now we got a house that a guy lives in. We're not going to knock his house over every time the sprinkler comes around, right? So we have to reverse that one. We're reversing against a county road on another, and the property line on it. Like we have some that are windshield wipers, but that's one of the reasons we've sort of kind of gotten away from wheat, because now you got that spot out there. Either you walk that sprinkler across it to get back to the dry side, or, so there's all that. When it phrased question earlier about how many probes we have, So we have an area where we have 9 pivots that are all quarter-mile pivots that are all tied together. We only have 3 probes out there because we have 3 circles of corn. The Milo's not going to get any water. We're not learning anything off of that. The cotton's sure not getting any water. We're not going to really learn much off of that. So we keep them in the corn, and where we have split fields, we try and have a probe on either side. And hopefully this field is right next to the other field, similar water capacity. So we're trying to get 2 and 3 looks with the same probe, if that makes sense. We do have permanent probes. We also have seasonal probes. My dad is very intent on the permanent probes only goes on land he owns. Because just like this year, we woke up one summer and family owned a farm for 50-something years, and they said, there's 12 heirs to this deal and we ain't all going to get along. We got to divvy up the money now before there's blood in the news, right? So he'll never put a permanent probe on something he doesn't own. The permanent probes are great. The only small knock, there is a little bit of a management zone in there at the top end that we don't always capture. If you get the extra sensor in there, it takes a little more work on those. It's not, hands-free where you don't touch them while you're having to move them in and out of the field or whatever. When it comes to management decisions, on the split, half corn, half Milo or cotton, whatever's on the other side, in theory, every time that sprinkler comes around, you have a decision, right? And you got to know the decision before it. You can't wait till it gets to the road and say, oh, it's Friday at 4. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with it, right? So that's how we use the sensors. Now, in a rain event, the sensors are your biggest tool. Yeah, a rain gauge is nice. Yeah, I got a 1/4 of an inch of rain, or a half, or 3/4, or whatever. That's just the starting line. How far did it wet down, and how much? My dad always pulls out some type of straight edge. Usually it's the edge of his pen or something, and is looking at the graph. Okay, that bought me 2 days. So now I'm going to take 2 days out of the corn and give it to the Milo now. But to do that, you got to still keep it in the same pattern. So if we're making a loop every 12 or 14 days, it will always hit this turn row every 12 to 14 days, whatever the number is. So we'll take a 1/4 out of the corn and give it to the Milo this time because it's at panicle. So we're trying to make that Milo think it's going to have a good year, or it's about to push the head. It's at boot. We caught a 1/2 inch rain. Now we can still a 1/2 inch from the corn, and we can give it to the Milo and make sure, it pushes a good strong head out there, right? Thanks to Harold, after 2011, the planter is usually still in the barn in April. We haven't even pulled it out yet. We used to plant all of our corn in April, plant all of our cotton in May, all of our Milo in June. If our planter's rolling by May the 15th, somebody's going, hey, y'all okay? Something happened over there? We plant more corn in June now than we plant in May. And we do not plant any corn in April. And again, it's all about, that one's back to wind, length of day, temperature, all that stuff. If you're in this room, you probably know if you can shove your peak water use into a shorter day where it may be a little bit cooler and there's not wind, you can push water a whole lot further. That deal, we planted a field of corn June the 22nd in 2012. We had seed Milo next to it. We were going to take care of that seed Milo field, right? Corn was being the stepchild. We didn't water it till August the 15th. I'm not exaggerating. Our crop consultant hated it. Couldn't, right on his report, it's getting hot, it's getting hot, it's getting hot. Well, seed paid more than the corn did that year too, like most years, right? So we kept the water on the seed Milo, until, say it was August 15th, it was tasseled and shooting silks before we turned the water on. but we only put like 9 inches of water on it and made like 160 bushels of corn. We were on to something accidentally. That wasn't exactly the plan. But so we saw what we could do with less water, made more bushels. All that stuff we'd planted in April in 2011, we probably pumped 20 something inches on that year and got 120 bushels out of it that year, right? 2011 was a booger. 2012, we basically just missed the wind. We still got the heat. We still got no rain that year. We made a lot more corn that year. But so that's where it started. Like I said, all the management stuff on our farm is geared towards getting the grain bins full. And it's a good problem to have in the middle of harvest when you're going, I got to get some of this out of here, or we can't even get it all stacked in there, right? We've had a few years where it's, don't worry about calling a feedlot because you ain't got enough to fill it up anyway. So,
Grandpa.
we did, I'm not very good with a shovel, if you can tell I'm fat. I don't like the shovel. We have tried sorghum silage in 2023 when we couldn't get our cotton in. Our biggest deal was you look out there and there were 47 trucks on a half-mile pivot and you're like, we had to overcome that with water. And any solution that you have to overcome with water is not a solution for us anymore. Now, we didn't plant early like him. We planted late like we do with our Milo, and it just was not a good fit on our farm. Again, never say never, but we hope we don't have to go back to that. Plus, we're 30 miles from the dairy as opposed to 4 miles. So that does make a big difference for us when it comes to chopping. We have chopped just a little bit of corn, but that was because the hail took the corn down to this tall after it was tasseled. So we want as much grain as we possibly can, and then, like I said, if there's anything left, then maybe the cotton accidentally gets a drink of water.
Okay, questions?
So, I mentioned an example that your dad had talked to me about, was using irrigation to wet some circles up and then treat them as dry land.
We
About that? On what?
all of our cotton is treated that way, and we have 6 or 8 circles of Milo that we do that as well. Everything under a pivot is pre-irrigated to 6 foot of profile on our farm. Now, when our crop consultant showed up, he carried a 4-foot probe and said, that's all you ever need. That's as deep as roots go. And we said, disagree, Carl. Love you to death, but we disagree. We have root digs every summer. We've seen cotton roots, corn roots, Milo roots go 7+ feet deep on our farm, in our soils. So we know it happens. So everything on our farm gets pre-irrigated to 6 feet deep. Now, that's another reason we don't like cotton, because that dude sucked it all out of there last year because we don't irrigate it, right? So whatever's there, cotton's got it. We got places where we got 6 and 7 inches of pre-water we know we got to put down on cotton. Now, when we planted in April, we watered in December and January and February to get all that done. Now that we plant in June, now we're at that point now where we're about to have to start firing wells up and pre-irrigating. But yes, I bet we've got close to 1,000 acres of Milo that we pre-irrigate it good, we plant it, we water it up. Now we take care of the weeds. We don't short on herbicide or anything like that. Or if we got something the herbicide missed, the whole hand crew is out there cleaning it up for us. We don't skip on anything like that. We just know it's not going to get watered. So we'll thin the population back a little bit, not a lot, and then all of our cotton's out of the way. We're as close to no-till as you can be. We don't even pull a strip till rig anymore. We run a high-speed applicator that literally opens up about a 2-inch wide slot. We shoot our fertilizer in that slot, cover it up. You can't hardly even tell that applicator's been out there in corn residue. Or Milo residue. We're trying to not disturb the stool at all. So that's how we apply our fertilizer pre, And then, like I said, we're trying to, fill the profile up. And another reason, of course, this year may be different, but as long as you keep the soil temperature below 50 degrees, you're not going to leach nitrogen out. So that's why we pre-irrigate hard now. If we have to pre-irrigate a little further in the spring, now the soil temperature comes up, now we got to worry about a little bit of leaching and that sort of deal. So we know on our cotton, like I said, we've had years where we've had to pump 10 inches of pre-water on the cotton. And one thing I'll say about pre-watering is we always try and do it in one pass. Now for we've got to incorporate some herbicide or something like that. We may make a 1/2 or a 3/4 inch pass to incorporate some herbicide. But if we know we got to do a 7 inches, the sprinkler will be at 1.2%, and it'll sit there for 30 days to make a loop. And my dad's favorite phrase is, you can't pre-water from the top down. Go look out there at them cracks. It ain't sitting at the top of that crack. Where'd it go? All the way to the bottom, right? So if you're just continually making a 1 inch pass and you make 7 inch passes, A, you evaporated some off every single time, and B, you're watering from the top down, not from the bottom up to fill it up. And like I said, we've made a lot. Our cotton this year was about the second best crop we've ever harvested. 0 inches of irrigation on there. Our commercial milo wasn't the best by any stretch of the imagination, but we've made lots of bushels over time just by having a full profile to start.
How does that go with the insurance? You can't insure it? Like, you have to, if you're going to insure it, it's going to be insured at an irrigated level, right?
Yes, because we watered it up after the seed was in the ground, yes. But he's not going to take full coverage out on essentially a dry land crop, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The way you make money is not spending money.
Exactly.
So you're going to full profile on the pre-irrigation. Then you get a rain. I'm just saying, what happens in, you're already at full profile, where does that go?
You get to go shut them off for the first time ever.
Well, that's one of the things you're trying to avoid is having to spend a lot of money on pre-water and have a big rain, but that's hard to determine.
Yeah.
That's why
I just didn't know if you went to full then, or you go like 85% and see if it rains.
Yeah. We try and say we're going to leave at least 1.5 inches space in there and give yourself a little wiggle room. But if you stop at 4 foot, that last 2 foot is more than 1.5 inches most of the time.
Where Stephen and Tom are, they've got some really great deep soil. Where we are, we can't pre-irrigate down to 6-7 feet. We're hitting a caliche area after about 45-48 inches. So we try to fill that 4 foot up. And I guess that's still a debate whether or not we can get roots passed through a caliche area layer, but
We can't.
Yeah, it's not. You get roots down there, it's hard to get water past the connection.
I've been to the root digs and it's fascinating. I'll tell you what, there's a lot to learn.
I don't mean to dominate all the questions, but what have you done, I guess, Stephen, to improve your soil structure? Because I know that you've made some big differences out there, but how did you get there?
Literally don't touch it. My dad's favorite analogy is treat it like a scab. If you sit there and pick at it, it's going to get worse, right? If you leave it alone, it's going to heal itself. So we used to run tractors to get rid of compaction issues. Now we run those LSW fat tires. We have a ripper in the dirt over there, but we haven't pulled it out in 13 years. We haven't pulled a disc out of the fence row in 11 years. We just don't touch it. Let water do its work. Yes, there's no doubt where grain carts come out of the field over and over and over, we have some compaction issues there. But we try and never ever mess with an old root channel. That's our best friend on our farm. My dad has My dad's weird if you don't know him, all right? He's got corn sitting on his dash all day long. In his office, there's a chunk of soil about this big. It's his pride and joy. Everybody that walks in, David's shaking his hand, yes. He wants to show you this. He'll walk over, you see that channel right there? That was a worm, that was an old root channel there, that was a... Now, it's still hard, but water can get through it if you leave those old root channels alone, let the worms go through. One thing that there's a soil scientist, and I've forgotten his name. He probably doesn't want me to remember his name. He told us using anhydrous is killing all the bugs in our ground. Okay, why? Well, you're changing the pH of the soil by so much in this.
Yeah.
And my uncle, who has since passed away, said, I'm sorry, but the last time we were out there digging corn, we found more worms than we found corn. Again, we put our anhydrous down in the wintertime where there's no bugs at the top of the ground. And those bugs come back in the springtime in full force. And the more residue we have out there, the better it is. In fact, we've hit spots this year. I pulled into a field and just where the combine knocked the rows down, we're puffing anhydrous. I have to pick up and go find another field because it ain't gonna work. Where the stalks were standing there, even though we haven't had any rain in a long time, we still had enough moisture left in even the top 6 inches, about how deep we're going with our Coulter rig, to hold that anhydrous in there, and we're gonna have to fire some wells up to be able to hold the anhydrous in there. Now, Harold does a very different program than we do.
Yes, we don't use anhydrous anymore. We used to use a lot of anhydrous. Stan probably remembers the days when as long as you could stand it in the cab, you just kept running, and we just put huge amounts.
49.55 with
Yeah.
Just a
the
second.
windows like this.
Do not forget to fill out those evaluations, or you have to face her. She's tough. She's small, but she's wiry. Okay, go on.
We don't use any anhydrous anymore at all, and we're on a nitrogen program in the summertime. Eric was here last week, I think, and he's checking our soil periodically throughout the season. We just apply what we actually need in season. Now, that is a high managed way of doing it. It's very effective, but you got to really get geared up to be able to do it. You got fertilizer pumps running. If you have a pivot stop and you're trying to guess where the pump shut off, you have to fill in the gaps, but it's very effective if you can make it work. We use a lot of manure now since we're close to the dairy, so that's a primary source of our fertility anymore. And then we're just adding some nitrogen, and that's about all we add. We put out a lot of manure. And compaction is an issue. We try to offset it with high residue, and we're not doing any plants to speak of. We are strip tilling, but we're not strip tilling every field anymore.
How deep are you running your strip till rig now?
Not that deep.
Okay.
Just and most of the time it's just behind the manure truck, so we can break it up a little bit.
So when we first started strip tilling, I had an argument with my uncle one afternoon. You're pulling up clods. Yeah, I know, I'm getting it out, yeah. Well, quit pulling clods up. No, I'm breaking all the compaction up. He's like, no, quit, pull that thing out of the ground. Well, we've learned you don't got to go 12 inches deep anymore to
No.
break up all that compaction.
No.
Which the only strip tilling we do is for cotton, and we literally go 3 inches deep just to stir some soil up so we got something loose to plant into. But that's the only tillage at all we do anymore. But everything on our farm is based on water, and the only way we can hold water in our fields is to leave that residue out there. That's why we struggle with cotton sometimes, because after cotton harvest you got a bird trail here and a bird trail here, and it's tough to look at sometimes.
Cover crops, just out of curiosity. Use them or not?
We do plant cover crops, but the sorghum silage is kind of taking care of that. But where we don't have cover, we're planting some wheat. We chopped corn for 2 years after saying we would never do that. And it was, we lost all our residue.
Chop corn
And so-
stalks.
Yes, and so we're not doing that anymore. So without a cover crop, we gotta incorporate a cover crop for the chop for. And that makes it difficult because, again, we don't have the irrigation capacity to make up for that deficit if you're gonna lose it from the wind blowing all winter long. So you have to be careful with it.
Do you allocate a certain amount of water for that cover crop, or you're just trying to keep it alive?
Just get it established.
Established
Yeah.
and not thriving.
And then just like David was saying, in the spring of the year, when it starts using water, that's when you wanna
Kill it.
kill it.
We used to attempt cover crops behind cotton. Oats was what we used the most, and seemed like we, at the top of the sand hill, we couldn't get a good stand, but at the bottom where the water ran to in a big rain, we'd always have good oats. And so now we didn't drill it in. We literally had an air seeder come on and spread it on. We tried strip tilling it in one year, running the rotary hoe to get it in one year. We just not had any luck other than we have a hoe drill, which we've got the smallest sweeps we could get, 2-inch hoe drill. If we have something we had to chop, corn crop a couple of times, and then we had to chop something else. I guess milo one time. We did go in, but same thing. We used wheat because we knew we could get a stand out of it. We made 2 quick passes to water it up, and then about this time of year we tried to smoke it as hard as we could, make sure it was not using any water that we wanted for our crop. But we only do that in a rescue situation. We don't use it normal or in a rotation of any sort.
So you're basically saying, okay, I fill out the profile, and I turn on the sprinkler and run it. So what the hell are the probes for?
Well, I have to walk that back, especially after something Steven said. That's the reason why we have probes, is if you have 2 different crops, that's how we can determine like if we have one in the corn and one in the sorghum silage, and typically corn gets most of the water. But if we have some rain or something like that, we can put a little bit more water on the sorghum silage and a little bit less on the corn. But corn is the primary crop and it gets all the attention. So we do use probes for that. And that is irrigation scheduling, by the way. So it's not like we don't do any of this, we do.
And the probes will help you tell when it's over too.
Yeah, when you see a flat line or getting
Yep.
close to it.
When you're getting to the end and you don't, crop consultant's always going to tell you to make one more pass, right? Well, you can tell him, that dude quit using water, it's a straight flat line, we're done. You're wasting water at that point.
And water's valuable. Okay.
But you can tell effectively with this, like 1 probe per field, or
If we're split field, we like to have a probe on each side. If we're a full circle of corn, yeah, we just find whatever the medium soil type is and elevation and all that stuff. You can put a probe in the wrong spot and really mess the data up essentially. But yeah, we're trying to make multiple management decisions with 1 probe because it's a cost. It doesn't matter if it's a permanent probe or a seasonal probe. There's a pretty big cost out there in that. But so like I said, if we got similar water, similar soil types, we'll kind of say, now we ground truth everything. I should say that too. We carry 6 foot. Our crop consultant calls it a penetrometer. That's a fancy name for a soil probe for us, right? So we are checking the probes to make sure, we're not getting some funky data. We have had probes in the past where the sprinkler went across with like 1.5 inches or 1.75 inches and it didn't show anything. And of course, now you get excited. What happened? Did you have a nozzle plugged right over the top of it? Whatever. And so, especially in stuff like that, we are ground truthing the probes as well. But you get a 1.5 foot down there and you hit a hard pan, dry pocket, you ain't getting the soil probe through. Well, you may have soil down below you're still feeding off of, especially at the end of the year. We do pull from very, very deep at the end of the year, drying that profile back out.
Permanent versus annual probes. Preference?
I think they both serve a purpose. We like the permanent probes as far as this time of year. You can see how much moisture you have in your profile and how much you need to pump. It's a tool. It's not, you're not gonna get that exact information from the probe, but after you looked at them long enough and over the years, you have a pretty good idea what you need to pump. But we ground truth it too with a hand probe.
Is it cost effective, one of them over the other?
Well,
Just,
the
Makes
in-season
it easier.
probes, we like those also. I think, I like the website a lot better than Grow Gurus. But David was part of that.
Yeah.
David was part of that too, so I've been looking at that a lot longer than the Grow Gurus. I've gotten to.
That's what you learn first.
Yeah, and so but the Grow Gurus, we appreciate those, especially this time of year, because they're in the ground and they're giving us information.
okay,
And you have you can go back, 4 to 5 years and just kind of see the trends over the years, what's been going on in your profile, so it's good information.
makes sense. Any other questions?
Did you talk about, I had to step out, about your early silage, like the split?
Yeah,
Oh, you did, okay.
yeah, you missed that, David, sorry.
No, I think it's a great,
Well, we would be growing sorghum silage if we could. That's the crop of choice to companion with corn. But when you can't get those contracts, they love corn. They'd rather have corn than sorghum silage.
Oh, what, the dairy tree?
Yeah, that's the crop of choice.
Oh, corn silage.
Yeah, corn silage
Okay.
over
that's
sorghum
silage.
silage.
Corn versus sorghum silage. What?
Sorghum's so much easier to